I find myself spending more time on LinkedIn lately than Instagram. By the way, I've been tagging you on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've been seeing that.
I will log back in. I'll give it a look, Steve. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, we were just talking yesterday after the session with a few of the people in the audience how we're so surprised that of all places, LinkedIn is like the safest space to talk about cannabis and like grow your cannabis business.
Yeah, it is. That is an unlikely winner or leader. We were just having a conversation around X or Twitter, and a lot of folks from outside of Minnesota say that's the best place to have cannabis promotional social media, but it's not popular in Minnesota's cannabis industry. It's just, and it's kind of always been like that. Maybe there used to be more, but it was never a lot of people. There was never a large Twitter following. And obviously it's gotten more political now, but LinkedIn is great. And Minnesota just has such an opportunity in the industry right now because so much of the production and the hemp-derived idea came out of Minnesota. And I guess that's one of my questions for you is, when did that first idea be like, we should look at the Minnesota cannabis industry as an opportunity? Like, go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then maybe we can start with that.
Sure. I will start. I'm Leah Kollross, and I'm with Sprout and Natural Harvest. We had been in some other industries previously, more recently real estate, and we were looking to pivot into a different industry. And with the cannabis market opening up, it felt like a really natural move for us. We've always been focused on innovation, and with an emerging market, it just got us really excited about, taking all of our past experiences with running a business and lending our expertise to this market as business professionals, and also with our passions for the plant as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Kasey, do you have anything more to add?
Sure. I mean, I guess my interest, I've been a basically lifelong cannabis user.
Sure.
I think my mom threw away my plants when I was like 13 or 14. So like, kind of just always been interested in growing it. Previously it was like a grower in college, and
Okay.
a lot of people got in trouble, so I wasn't able to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, have the, I guess, interest to, chase it cross country to follow some of the legal markets. This was also like in the 90s, so we were, still 10 years away from Colorado at that point. So kind of took a bit of a backseat, but then certainly like started paying attention with the legislation. It seemed like the votes were there.
Yep.
A ton of interest, a ton of outreach, a lot of people doing really good work getting the word out there. So, it just kind of became, more and more of interest. And like Leah said, it was, being in real estate is kind of a interesting time. I mean, there's certainly, opportunities there, but it's also, can be a super challenging time, and there's not a ton of affordability, and that's kind of always been part of our business model. Just kind of all the pieces came together at the same time.
Sure. And like many people in this local industry, you're starting with, well, maybe not starting with hemp. You came into the industry after seeds became legal, right? So after August 1st, 2023. So you were probably working on Natural Harvest leading up to that, but when did you launch Natural Harvest?
We did launch Natural Harvest August 1st of 23.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the first times we came across each other would be that summer, maybe at a Canna Connect event or at the legalization downtown. Were you guys down there, First Avenue? But I don't want to put a specific date on it because I remember meeting you in November, but you were probably gathering experiences and learning more about the industry that summer.
You know, coming into the industry, you don't automatically know, you know, where to go, who are the players in the industry. So I would say leading up to when we met, you know, I was spending a lot of time just like building the business, getting the foundation set, not really being out there in the community. I didn't really know where the community was, who the community was. So
that's always been a challenge here.
Yeah. I mean, now I feel like I can, you know, expertly talk to a lot of people about how to find your community, where the community is. But at that point, I wasn't tapped in.
Sure.
So yeah, just working on building the business. And then I would say like when we met, you know, that kind of got the ball rolling.
Yes.
I started to meet more people and get involved.
But before we go too far, tell us a little bit about that natural harvest business that you launched, and what can people find when they go online?
Sure. So we wanted to support the Minnesota home growers wherever they were at. So we launched Natural Harvest at minnesotacannabisseeds.com, where you can find over 1,000 different SKUs of seeds. We have tons of breeders, tons of size, or seed pack sizes, if you will. And it's been really interesting to see how excited people are about home growing. And it's not just, you know, people who are curious about it, but other people who don't really know where to access flower. You know, maybe they don't want to go to a different state, but they want to grow their own. So it's been fun over the past year, meeting customers and educating them on, you know, how to grow and whatnot. So
yeah, and I mean, how we met is kind of a funny story. We met at a Minnesota Cannabis College class that Canna Connect was hosting, and you were wondering, is it okay if I bring the news to this event? Which, of course you can bring the news. That's great. And
yeah.
I rewatched that segment last night online that covered cannabis seed businesses, local businesses that were selling now legal cannabis seeds for home growers. And it was a nice piece. They covered a retail shop, and they covered your online store, and just showed the accessibility that's now, or at the time was new and coming online. And how did that news segment affect your business, or what was that experience like, and how has it given you more confidence now to be out there more?
Yeah, man, I would say back then we had been working with Canna advisors with our business plan for Sprout. And when I was approached by, I think it was WCCO, to be on a segment.
ABC, Channel 5. Thank you to ABC for covering the industry.
Yes, thank you, ABC. When I was approached by them to be part of the segment, you know, they reached out to us specifically because we are permitted seed labelers in Minnesota. So I was really excited to talk about the business, even though the business was just a baby.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's interesting to talk about such a brand new business confidently. I would say if I could redo that segment today, things would go a little different, a little better, I guess. But, you know, it's all a learning experience. But, yeah, it was a really positive experience, positive for our business. It got awareness out there. You know, any opportunity we can have to educate the public on what the laws are and how to access the product is exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. The grow side is, I mean, at that time it was really taking off. The class that we put on was sponsored by Boveda, how to dry your cannabis correctly. Do you get a lot of questions from customers or potential customers around, like, how do I use this product, or like, what do I do? And like, do you have some good resources when it comes to like planting seeds? Like, where do you recommend people to go after they buy your product? What do they do with it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely tons of questions. You know, we try to gauge like where people are at. You know, we see people that are new to growing and people that have, you know, maybe been doing this before
Yeah.
August 1st of last year.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, but maybe. So yeah, it's just, kind of a lot of different skill levels.
Right. Right. Yeah. But you also offer a ton of varieties of seeds. And so you kind of have a seed for everybody, right? Is there like a process that you went through to examine how you were going to build your library or build your backstock? Like, where did you start? Where did you end? Because at some point you've accumulated lots of options, right?
Yeah, we kind of originally reached out to the parent company of Seedsman
Okay.
to create a partnership there. Not only do they have the Seedsman brand, but they also import Barney's, Fast Buds, like many of the big, well-known global brands.
Okay.
And, it kind of just started that conversation on, what do you have available? And they, make it pretty easy as a good distribution partner
Sure.
to, kind of map out and provide us with like their best selling, which was kind of our first entry to it was, what are like the top
Yeah.
things that people are purchasing. Because what's unique to Minnesota is that we do have this permitting law.
Okay.
Almost every seed seller out there you see is selling hemp souvenirs. But Minnesota, has regulated cannabis seed or marijuana seed
Okay.
industry by the MDA.
Yeah.
So
it's an egg thing, right?
Right. Yeah. So, it's, kind of a pain, right, as regulation can be, but also it's great because, it's just totally normalized this, right? So, your burpee seeds that you buy in the spring to, grow tomatoes in your garden or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the same law as that. And you just have to abide by those labeling requirements.
Right.
And, it's like one more crop and they're, super into it. It's also interesting, the level of acceptance, I would say, through the MDA.
Yeah.
I guess, agriculture, so it kind of makes sense. But
like a good level of normalization.
yeah, I mean, and not, the pushback that, especially a year ago, right? I think things have changed dramatically. We've seen in the last year, really, with beverages and things like that. Obviously, it's been growing for some time, but really, we've seen a lot of good traction, in acceptance in the last year. But yeah, even a year ago, MDA people were, hey, we're into this. We're part of Minnesota Grown. There was lots of opportunities there. So
Yeah, that's cool. You see the Minnesota Grown seedling starter kit here. I think the thing that I noticed the most about you two is your willingness to show up since we met in November. Probably seen you every month since then in some capacity, and that was one of the ideas that we talked about, featuring you. And you two are both now well-known faces in the Minnesota cannabis industry when it comes to events and supporting. One of the few brands that did the trifecta this summer, the Legacy Cup, the Doobie Dabbler, and the Garrison Hemp Fest, basically back-to-back weekends in about a month, 5 weeks' time. So I really want to applaud you and say thank you for supporting, whether it was Canna Connect or the Modest 4-Canna Beverage or all of these events that, our event organizers have put on, you've supported. And Earl Giles is another one that, you're a mainstay there. So talk through kind of that level of acceptance, like the fear of showing up and then becoming more comfortable and then now finding your own place in the industry. Can you talk about the growth that you've seen in the last 6 to 12 months, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. So like we were talking about earlier, we spent the first part of our time building the business, not really being out in the community. And then when we started coming to Canna Connect events or other events, we were kind of, I don't want to say in the shadows, but we didn't know anyone. It was hard to make the connections at first, but once we started, I think participating in Legacy Cup last year.
Okay.
Was kind of our big first event, and we met a lot of customers, but not necessarily a lot of people in the industry.
Okay.
And then after that, just like you said, showing up, getting to meet more and more people. It's been a really fun journey to where, you know, I think about a year ago, I would go to an event, I didn't know anyone. And now I go maybe to happy hour at Earl Giles, and I can see that I know like 80% of the crowd.
Yeah.
Like, these are all people I know, I've had conversations with. We will be working in this industry together.
Yeah.
So it's been really great just seeing how welcoming the community is.
Right.
I really appreciate that. I would say the most about being in this industry is how welcoming the community is.
I've seen it time and time again where it's really about showing up. You show up enough times consistently and you're absorbed into the Minnesota cannabis community, and it's you got to put in the work, but
and it's a way to build trust. I mean,
yeah,
hard to trust a person who you've never met before. And so, you know, when new people show up, it's, you know, there is that level of trust that you might not have with them yet. But, you know, just a year later, you know, we've all been around each other. We've gone through some things together now. And so we can trust each other and know that we're in this together for the long haul. And it's not, you know, some like cash grab or like,
right.
Oh, this seems like an exciting venture for me, and then, oh no, this is too hard, I'm going to back out, and you never see me again. You know, we're in it for the long haul, and we're ready to, you know, keep on keeping on till the finish line.
I didn't warn you for this one, but I do want to mention something that you've experienced, and it's interesting because you've put yourself out there. You've been unafraid to share that you're entering into the cannabis industry. You're unafraid to show up to events, and you have done a great job of that. But it's come with some consequences, right? And you've felt and have dealt with not every industry being on board with cannabis or even being affiliated with a cannabis profession or a career, right? And so if you're willing to talk a little bit about your unfortunate employment experience as it related to them judging your work in the cannabis industry or the stigma related to it as it relates to the banking industry, can you share a little bit about what you've gone through after kind of coming out of the canna closet?
Sure. Yeah. So back in January, I was diagnosed with MS, which I got like the day after we met. After that news segment, it was kind of like you said you had just watched it, and my body was going through this neurological event during that filming. So the next day is kind of when it happened. So that was a pretty terrible experience for me. And the medication that I need to prevent any more relapses is very expensive, and it's a challenge to get it through insurance. You have to go through a specialty pharmacy. So I started looking for another position. I for the last like 15, 16 years, I've worked in payroll and HR, more recently being a payroll manager. And my current employer, the insurance wasn't great, and I started to look for another job that would have better insurance.
Yeah.
For that, just, you know, for my MS medication. And so I got a job with a bank, maybe not name names.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we that's what we're going with this season.
So
the stakes have been hot raised.
I mean, I'd like to name their name, but
maybe later in a LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
Anyways, so back in March, I took a position with a bank as the payroll supervisor. You know, they had better benefits, better retirement plan, like all the great perks. So I was really excited to work there.
Sure.
I was doing my job. Things were going really well. And I was just super excited to be in this position with them. and they saw on LinkedIn that I was the founder of Sprout, so they asked me about that. And I let them know it's this, kind of, I don't want to say hypothetical, but kind of hypothetical business
Concept.
because
Yeah.
I don't have a license. I don't know when I'm going to get a license. I may never get a license. It may never happen, right?
1 in 16 chance, I think you guys said. On the
Yeah, on the
previous
mezzo
episode.
side, yeah. Yeah.
And so they said, that they don't accept deposits from cannabis businesses and that it's tied to money laundering. And they terminated my employment because of my association with the cannabis industry. And that was very, very disheartening.
Yeah.
To go from, being really excited about working for a company that has, I was there to do a job that has nothing to do with cannabis.
Right.
And the things that I'm doing in my off hours, to find out that they would terminate my employment because of what I do in my off hours.
Yeah.
When there are laws to protect me from, being able to enjoy cannabis in my off hours.
Right.
It was quite the blow.
Yeah.
So that's been discouraging, and I know, if I'm being discriminated from my employer for cannabis, just the cannabis industry in general,
Mm-hmm.
like how many other people are being discriminated
Right.
from their employers?
Right.
It just doesn't sit right with
No.
me at all,
Yeah.
especially coming from being in like the HR field for so long. I've always been such an advocate for employees, that they have fair treatment on the job, and then to have this happen to me was pretty sucky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not like you were caught working on your business during company hours or on company equipment or anything like that. It was just the affiliation on LinkedIn and your advocation for the industry as a whole, I would imagine.
Right.
So, Kasey, how did you process that when you heard the news?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm still processing it. It's like, it just doesn't quite seem real. I mean, as a cannabis user, my life,
Mhm.
I've dealt with lots of people, not accepting of it.
Right.
And I think I've probably chosen my career path accordingly,
Yeah.
mostly being self-employed. So
Sure.
there's, no boss and,
Right.
maybe don't share with, customers and clients and things like that, unless, that maybe they're, of the same ilk or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, oftentimes not using during the day, or making sure that work is not getting in, or that cannabis use, or whatever use is not getting in the way of your job. I can understand that, but as things are starting to change, you're starting to see all this optimism. It's legal. Drug testing is going to be harder to pull off. There's more consumer or employee protections, and then all of a sudden you get dealt a blow unrelated to your job performance, just related to your future ambitions, perhaps. And it seems like a very a mindset of not abundance but of fear, and they're fearing, which it just seems so complicated. Like, it doesn't make sense on how it's a threat to their business. It's just the affiliation that they don't like.
Right. And, this particular company, they advertise how inclusive they are, and they advertise celebrations of all of the right things, right? Pride Month, Black History Month.
Minority focuses.
Yeah. And so when you have somebody who enters the company to do a job,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the job, I'm learning the job, I'm doing it well, I'm excited to be there.
Yeah.
And I have this other part of my life that has nothing to do with my day job. And they're so quick, like, they don't want to learn or understand where I'm coming from, but just like, we don't know enough about this, we feel very uncomfortable by it. And to make that judgment on me so quickly,
Yeah.
I was just really, really surprised. How can you, claim to be so inclusive, yet, this legal regulated market,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to, throw out the window because you don't understand it and you don't want to understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, and now you probably feel like, 8 months later, you feel like, well, I'm only now more all in on cannabis because I had this one job taken away from me, and now I'm going to probably pursue this even harder because at this point, if I go in for another interview with another company, they're going to see that you're further along in your cannabis journey. I mean, that's probably been really challenging to deal with, and I've dealt with that as an entrepreneur and then someone who's now in a regular job role. It's like, are they going to judge me for what I do on the side or as a side hustle? And so how have you dealt with that this summer? Has it been even more challenging, or are you looking for more canna-friendly companies? Or it's personal, but I guess I'm genuinely curious, like, how do you bounce back from that?
It's definitely been a challenge because I don't feel that I did anything wrong. So to have to almost justify what happened to potential employers during job interviews is a really strange, awkward thing. Yeah. It's embarrassing, like to tell someone, okay, I was working for XYZ company for 3 months and then they fired me, not because of my job performance, because I was regularly praised for doing a really great job. They were happy to have me, but then they see that I'm affiliated with an industry that they don't understand. Right. So they fire me. It's a really hard thing to get into. Yeah. And, if you're interviewing somebody for the first time on a job and they're telling you, like, I was fired because of cannabis, they might feel like, well, that's a little much. I don't know that I want to pursue anything more with this person, even if they are a great candidate. Right. So yeah, they've put me in a bad position, you know, especially leaving a job that I already had, and I turned down another job offer at the same time to take that one. So yeah, it's been pretty shitty.
It gives you more conviction now that you've been dealt a blow, and you want to bring a better mindset to this industry when it comes to compassion and empathy and understanding the real, not the stigma, but the real effect of cannabis, not the fear around it.
Right. And, I've met so many people over the last year who want to work in this industry, and they have all of these skills, and they're like, I don't really know that it's something I can put on my resume. I can't really say that I, grew cannabis in my closet, since I was a teenager, or that I threw all these parties and sold all this weed. I'm like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Just because it wasn't legal back then, it is legal now. And, I want to celebrate people's accomplishments, even if it wasn't part of the legal market. So that I'm really excited about, is kind of drawing people in who might not feel like they fit in a regular job, but they can find a home in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think experience is what matters. Experience matters, and how you get that experience can be self-taught. It can be through school. It can be through work. It can be through hobbies. If you've been growing cannabis for whatever reason, that's going to make you a more knowledgeable employee when it comes to flower sales or being a bud tender. Talk through a little bit about Sprout Cannabis. And actually, Tanner mentioned to me the other day that you have an innovative fundraising approach that you're taking. So let's share a little bit more about that as well.
Sure. Do you want to talk about
fundraising? Fundraising efforts. So we've kind of looked into, what the alternatives are. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to fundraising currently, especially with the Minnesota model. It's not super friendly to investment. So what little there is probably directed, towards other markets, even, some that have come online after ours that, are more catered to that big business multi-state operators. So with that in mind, certainly at this point it's all bootstrapped, but we plan on launching a crowdfunding. So Silicon Prairie is a local investment bank here in Minnesota, super cannabis friendly. The founder of it, he's a pretty
What's his name?
David Ducini.
Fun fact, one of the first iterations of a Minnesota Cannabis podcast was filmed or recorded 2019, 2020 in their St. Paul office.
Oh, no way.
Right off University on the highway there near Cretin Avenue. So
cool.
I met David through... Yeah, that's a long story. I'll tell you more about that after the show. But that's so cool. And they have that approach for all sorts of startups, right? Crowdfunding or different advanced or new age finance ways to fundraise.
Yeah, I think they have a traditional investment bank approach as well. And certainly more later stage companies, that makes a lot of sense and you pretty much have to. But especially for all types of small business, giving away too much equity and control, it can be the downfall, and you don't even know it. Even somewhat safer alternatives like debt and things like that. If it's convertible, you don't even realize where you've gotten yourself. So their approach to regulated crowdfunding, I think it's really interesting, and it opens up that possibility. And while it's difficult asking money from on a very professional level from friends and family, it gets a lot easier with that approach. And then it's regulated, and you can then show that as kind of a track record going forward of raising funds.
Cool. Is there anything we can do right now to share more about the opportunity, or is there an is it open for crowdfunding as of yet, or?
The crowdfunding page is up. The portal, you can check out invest.sproutcannabis.com and portal.sproutcannabis.com is the actual Silicon Prairie portal to do so. We're not really taking money quite yet, but starting to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So there's an option to I think, I can't remember how they term it exactly, but it's basically, committing that should it move forward, that you'd
it's
like to be
pledging your interest in investing when we open up our actual investment, like our go live investment round.
Sure. And I just caught myself. You weren't a part of the social equity pre-application round at this point, right?
We are.
Oh, you did. That's right.
Yes.
So take me through what that application process was like, from just like the Instagram versus reality. Like, what were you prepared for versus what did the actual application look like? And would you say it was harder than you expected, easier than you expected, or just your point of view on that?
Well, just to go back in time again, a year ago, we started working with Canna Advisors, and they took us through a lot of series of exercises and conversations about building our business, going through the financials, and we in the end came out with a really nice business plan and our financial model, and we've been building on that since. And so I feel like when we started on the application, I was expecting it to be very complex, really hard.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, because we'd been preparing for a whole year.
Sure.
I would say if I just decided this summer, hey, I'm gonna get into this industry, it would be really, really hard. But I can't say it was easy. It was a lot of work to complete it.
Yes.
But it was not as difficult as I had been expecting it to be.
Okay.
So it was a pretty good experience.
Okay,
for
good.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, that falls in line with kind of what Tanner was saying last week on the show. It could be challenging if you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, but if you were preparing for it and you had some understanding of what was coming, that it went pretty quickly.
I would agree. I would say one challenge we found, because we were prepared, is the 4,000 character limit.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it was abbreviations and things like that to reduce
Okay.
how many words we needed in that box, versus, and I know, like, some of the other groups were affiliated with the growers co-op and things like that. There are all these people helping others
Yeah.
with their application process. And, for the most part, the consensus was like, bullet points, like keep it very concise, and like at the time we released ours, even the draft rules hadn't been released yet. So really nobody knew exactly kind of where we were going. I think,
Right.
from everything we heard, it's more of a, understanding that, like, you're paying attention, you're thinking about these things, that, it's more than, just the basics of like growing some weed and selling some weed.
Yeah.
A regulated market, what that's going to entail, but, not
Sure.
super, specific.
Yeah. And just to give people some flowers or some appreciation, like who have been some of the ancillary folks that you've really taken a liking to, or that you've been able to connect with and have been helpful along the way throughout 2024?
Oh man, I feel like I'd be giving my like Emmys
Yeah.
acceptance speech
Long
here.
list.
Yeah.
I know Mark Randall comes to mind, on the security side. Mark's been
Absolutely.
been a great guy to get to know.
Oh
He's
yeah.
been great. It's really interesting and refreshing, to see his point of view as a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned before, but one of the first things he said to me, and at first it was a little alarming, is like he didn't like, when they introduced body cameras, and he said, what I didn't like about it is that meant, like, if I pull over some kid, smoking weed, I used to just throw that away and, no harm, no foul. And now it became like, I need to arrest someone, or at least write a citation.
Sure.
Obviously,
Level of
things have changed over the
accountability.
year, but yeah, so it's interesting, having people, I think, that's, not always the most prevalent view, but, a lot of people in law enforcement I've met over the years, very much that same viewpoint on it, is that, it's about time that it's legal.
Right.
Because, like, it's
Not that big of a
not
deal.
harming anybody. So,
Yeah, Mark's not to talk about Mark while he's not here, but he's one of the folks that is already working in the industry, non-plant touching, but he's able to work through the medical industry here in Minnesota. And I think getting that perspective right away was helpful for me to be like, oh wow, there is money moving. This is a functioning industry, albeit small compared to where we're going to get to in the next 5 years. But I know that 4,000 character limit when it came to the security plan, or that's I've heard that before. So hopefully we'll hear back soon. It may, we're recording this on September 20th. It may be another 2 months, and gosh, that's got to be hard not knowing, especially in a competitive license like the mezzo business. But
no doubt. Kind of trying to, find some ways to mitigate that, between the seed business, and
yeah,
we're working on formulating a beverage with Earl Giles. So, the idea is, I guess, that I don't have to go get a day job somewhere and do something else. Should we not get a license? So.
No, I think that's an incredible opportunity that the Minnesota industry has. Is like we're sort of running two tracks. We're running kind of with training wheels, and then there will be, the takeoff for recreational. But I think we've proven through the state, through everyone involved, like there is a market for low dose products from an access point, from a dosing standpoint, and just from a intro into the market. I think it's a great opportunity. I really hope that hemp and cannabis are able to kind of coexist. Is there anything else before we wrap up today that you want to mention about your experience thus far in the Minnesota cannabis industry?
So far, but for me, it's been great. Like Leah said, it's super welcoming. I do have a few friends that have been part of the industry, so it's great to kind of reconnect with them. And, it's certainly helped with introductions with others. But, yeah, it's fun to be part of, something that's growing too, right? I think it just creates, like, so much excitement and buzz that it's hard not to, like, be positive
Yeah.
in that situation.
Yeah, be positive. Awesome. Well, it's great to hear that you've had such a positive experience in the Minnesota cannabis industry. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into the seed starter kit that you brought along today.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Minnesota Cannabis College, your go-to resource for cannabis education and training in Minnesota. Whether you're just curious or ready to start growing, our courses and workshops are designed to guide you every step of the way. Learn from industry experts, gain real-world insights, and become a part of a community committed to responsible cannabis growth. Ready to elevate your knowledge? Visit mncannabiscollege.org to get started today.
And we're back. Today we are taking a look at the seedling starter kit that you brought. Now on your website you have 3 tiers of options for the kits. What are we looking at today?
Today, we brought you the seedling starter kit, and every subscription that you mentioned comes with a different amount of seeds. So the seedling starter, you'll get two seeds per month. Your first box is the intro box, so you're getting free seeds, you're getting swag, you're getting fun new products. So it's a really fun way to just see what's out there on the market for products that help you grow. And we've got the Harvest Hero, which is 4 seeds per month?
The budding grower is 4 seeds per month, and the Harvest Hero is 8 seeds per month.
Yes.
Yes.
Seedling starter, budding grower, and Harvest Hero. Nice.
Yeah.
I love this. And this was entered into the Legacy Cup competition. Is that right?
It was.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
For most innovative cannabis product. Or
Non-intoxicating.
Non-intoxicating.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Non-intoxicating in this form. Just wait till you see it grow.
Give it 90 days.
I'm really interested in doing some autoflower. I think that's going to be the best way for me to start growing is just kind of plant them, make sure the lighting is right, and in 90 days I'll have something.
It's something, it's nice, getting that finished product off, the first harvest or two, so you don't get kind of discouraged if, things don't go right. Certainly, like, my experience has been mostly with photo period, just kind of autos didn't really exist when I did most of my growing. But yeah, it's like, kind of getting those first couple harvests under your belt, it's super important, right? Just like growing anything, you get better at it the more you do it.
Absolutely. You mentioned something funny about brochures earlier when you walked in. So
Yeah, that's the brochure I was talking about. Yeah.
A lot of times people are confused until you give them something in their hand that they can really.
Exactly. Yeah. We've done many events at this point, talked to a lot of customers, and they're so nervous about growing. I think they just overthink it. So I created this brochure, and it just walks you through how to select your seed all the way to drying and curing.
Sure.
And it's given people a lot of confidence in getting the seeds.
So if I'm looking at this seedling starter kit, it's nice to get some seeds, some swag, some discounts, some Ovida packs. How did you sort of come up with this idea to bundle the seeds, and how has the subscription service grown to include, a larger tier like the budding grower and then the largest as the Harvest Hero? How did you come about that idea?
We wanted to offer something that was exciting and fresh and innovative to our customers. Getting a pack of seeds is really exciting because the potential of what that one seed will grow.
Yeah.
But introducing people to other things that will either help with their grow or just other products within the cannabis industry, it's just an exciting thing for people to get. So it's been fun to see the subscriptions go out and getting positive feedback on the subscription boxes.
Totally. Yeah. If people want to get started, what is the intro, like the seedling starter kit? What is the cost to get involved on as a subscriber?
So the intro box is $25. It's a great value. You get a few seed packs, you get all of the fun swag. And then after that, The seedling starter you get for $15 a month. It's an awesome value. You get 2 fresh new seeds every month.
Sure.
If you're not going to collect the seeds, it's a great gift.
Yeah.
Or you could kind of stretch out your subscription to quarterly. So it's a
Different
really
options.
great value.
Yeah. And if you're utilizing the seeds, it's an incredible value, because all of a sudden then you have ounces for dollars, which is
Exactly.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Shout out to any other companies that are interested in getting in on the box. We're definitely, interested in talking to other people about getting products that, in front of home growers that, maybe they're not, one of the biggest questions we get is like, growing medium, things like that. There's so many questions people have, obviously, like, we're not putting sample lights in there, but, it's like questions like that, it's just like the very basics. So,
Sure.
I'm definitely interested in talking to people about, opportunities to get their product.
Yeah, maybe like bags or
Yeah.
different things that fit within a box.
Right.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
6x6x2 box.
I could make a bigger box. If people want to send their lights to us to send out in the subscription boxes, I can make really big boxes.
Totally. We'll have to talk to Tanner about getting some Minnesota Cannabis College stickers as a part of the
Absolutely.
growing box.
Yeah.
But before we go, we got to dig into a little bit more on the event side. First question right off the bat. So Legacy Cup 2023 was your first big event.
Mm-hmm.
Then I saw you this past weekend at Legacy Cup 5 at 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Take me through kind of your experience year 1 versus your experience year 2, and how do you feel like it grew or evolved, or how was the experience the first year versus the most recent experience?
Sure. I mean, I think it's been great. Obviously, like, it was very new for us, and it was a huge event in 23. 24 also a huge, but we've kind of been through so many at this point. It was a lot easier. So, definitely a challenge for us, but, we see, kind of this continued interest from the public, and, so many people curious and just wanting to know, like, what the whole cannabis industry is about. So it was awesome.
Sure.
And it was really fun to see familiar faces.
Yeah.
Every event we are part of, I start to recognize the same people stopping by our booth and wanting to talk about growing, wanting to talk about seeds. So that's always going to be like my best takeaway from every event, is just getting in front of customers and then getting to know them.
Yeah, on the customers front, one of the questions I wanted to really ask was, like, take me through your customer type that you met at the Garrison Hemp Fest, and then maybe the customer type you met at Dabbler, and then at Legacy Cup. And do you think there's different types of customers that you came across depending on the event itself?
Yeah. Legacy, I would say we get a lot of more urban growers.
Sure.
Or urban wannabe growers, but they live in a studio and they can't grow. But they just want to stop by and tell us how much they want to grow, but they can't because they don't have the space. They live in an apartment.
A lot of questions about tents.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Garrison, people have land.
Yeah.
And they've been growing forever, and they open their wallets and they just have like this thick
Billfold.
fat stack of cash in their billfold.
Everybody was definitely ready to spend money at Garrison,
Yeah.
for sure.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I love hearing that from our vendors. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dabbler, I think because it was a little south of the metro, we got kind of a mix of both, where, a lot of people, again, were like the urban dwellers, but then a lot of people have been growing for a long time and have the space, and
Yeah.
we're just happy to get those seeds planted.
Yeah, I heard that as well from another operator in the industry this week. And I think what we're going to continue to try to do is continue to have more cannabis events across the state of Minnesota, and continue to find these pockets of fruitful opportunities for both the user and the provider, or the employee, or the brand and the consumer, because we want to continue to create this homogenous, or this cannabis industry up and down the state. We want to have a homogenous cannabis culture, whether it's Ely, Minnesota, or Albert Lee. We want to make sure that we're touching these different pockets of Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely. And from a online perspective, I would say most of our shoppers are out of the metro.
Okay.
So getting out of the metro and meeting the customers in the more rural areas, I think, is a great idea.
And I mean, to drop some news on the podcast and to kind of reaffirm, some of our value. Like, we have listeners from across the state of Minnesota. Like, somebody from every county in Minnesota listens to the Northern Lights podcast, and
Cool.
we're excited to have you as major sponsors this summer or this fall, going into the Q4 season. And folks will be learning more about Natural Harvest throughout these episodes. And we really appreciate you guys supporting our podcast and coming on to share your story. And we look forward to having you back on to preview another event as they come along. So thank you so much for being here, and appreciate you guys supporting the podcast. So if people aren't following you yet, where would you recommend they check out your brand and your personality online?
On Instagram, you can find us at MN Seeds. No, NH Seeds MN on Instagram.
So Natural Harvest Seeds
Minnesota, yeah.
Yeah.
NH Seeds MN. And our website is Minnesota, spelled out, MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com.
I love that. So easy. Yeah. Go to MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com and you can find a huge profile, huge library full of seeds that will ship to your door. Cool. And then, LinkedIn, I know both of you guys are on there.
Yeah, we're on LinkedIn. Leah
Awesome.
Kollross, Kasey Kollross.
And Facebook too. I know I share your guys' stuff on Facebook. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook. We also have a couple blogs that kind of try to be industry specific, both on Sprout and Natural Harvest websites.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the investment and the time that you're putting into this industry, and I wishing you good luck as we find out the next stage in this industry as it relates to licensure. So
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for your
Thanks.
support as well.
right on.
Thanks for having us.